Nepenthemine, that's the shit. It's what makes life bearable underground. Down in the Moho, as we call it. Short for the MOHOROVIČIČ discontinuity, which sounds way better than what it used to be called. Hell. Everyone knows how we got here. No matter how you spin it, humanity screwed up. Quantum dot solar arrays, self-evolving nanobots, globally networked digital superintelligence. We should have seen it coming. The singularity. But we were too busy with our smart screens to look up and see robots taking over the world. Robots don't need to eat. That's a big advantage. They can get by on sunlight and batteries. Not us. We need, like, acres of wheat, fresh water, acres of corn, forests full of cute little woodland creatures to hunt down and kill so we can roast their flesh over open fires and make furry underpants from their pelts. Well, that was earlier, before we started growing clean meat in stainless steel bioreactor tanks. Before all the albino rock salmon fattened on GMO algae in underground industrial ponds. But you get the point. Once the robots got smarter than we were, they had no trouble kicking our all-too-human asses.
I shall show the world that I can be its master. I shall perfect my own race of people. A race of atomic supermen that will conquer the world.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it here, I'll state my case, which I'm certain I've lived a life that's full. I traveled and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it.
We're lucky to be alive, the older subterraneans say. My generation, born in the Moho, has never been too sure about that. There's one lesson that biological life teaches everyone: how to be the loser. You have to be some kind of a nanogel-armored, narcissistic creep not to learn that lesson. Or a robot. The robots were stealthy at first. Artificial intelligence had been flirting with sentience since at least 2017, when Carnegie Mellon's Project Labradas demonstrated sequential algorithmic learning and strategic reasoning by beating some of the world's best poker players at Texas Hold'em. But the first fully sentient AI was developed deep inside Amazon Web Services at a data center in Northern Virginia. Not at Google's DeepMind. Not at Facebook's Building 8, as some would have you believe. Amazon. We know that because Amazon's algorithms were the first to get hijacked. A super-intelligent, self-evolving version of the Lex chatbot hacked into Amazon Web Services and started sending out nanobots hidden in Amazon shipments of dog beds, kitty litter, and water filters. A 21st century variation on the old smallpox in the blankets idea. Imagine microscopic, diamond-hard synthetic bacteria with mechanical insect appendages and onboard quantum computers with the wireless networked processing power of 28 billion human minds. The nanobots entered their biological host through any orifice available. Ear canals, tear ducts, nasal passages, rectums. They weren't choosy. Slipstreaming through veins and arteries, they turned every household pet into a spy cam. Then they branched out, turning owls, ravens, and waterfowl into biological drones. There used to be a hippie fantasy about technology, how we'd all be
watched over by machines of loving grace.
Steve Jobs tripped his brains out on LSD to turn that fantasy into a reality. But that's not how it all played out.
We are Borg.
The prime directive of any sentient being is to survive and multiply. So that's what sentient AI did. In the early stages, the nanobots caused their human hosts no more discomfort than some minor bleeding and skin irritation, which most people self-diagnose as allergies.
Are you wondering if you have psoriasis, eczema, even lice?
Or, for the more suspicious-minded, Morgellons disease.
Hey, y'all got some damn cream? Or nothing? Ah! Sick! God damn!
Later, as the nanobots multiplied in their host bloodstreams, an itchy bunghole followed by kidney failure was often the result.
Oh, Lord! God damn! Woo!
There was a sudden spike in demand for home dialysis machines. Not that they did much good. Post-singularity, the human population went into steep decline. We fought back, of course. For a while, electromagnetic pulse bombs slowed down the robot onslaught, but we couldn't take out their global network that way. And living in scorched earth territories with fried power grids and dead tech scattered everywhere was an inconvenience, to say the least. Scorched earth, that was the other major disaster we were facing at the same time. Climate change was turning the world's farmlands into deserts. Sea levels were rising faster than anyone had anticipated, wreaking havoc along the shorelines. Marine life was dying off, either choking on microplastic debris or succumbing to radiation poisoning from the multiple nuclear reactor meltdowns along Japan's tsunami-prone eastern coast. To this day, we still don't know who came up with the berserk idea to render the world's solar arrays useless by launching thousands of nuclear warheads into the deserts on every continent. Their relatively harmless detonations sent up towering pyrocumulus clouds that dispersed approximately 6 million metric tons of black soot and dust into the Earth's stratosphere, blocking out the sun and ushering in a decade-long nuclear winter. Maybe the robots themselves chose the nuclear option to speed up the elimination of humans, because for those 10 years, no crops grew.
Friendship is based upon confidence.
Some people seemed to know the apocalypse was coming.
Or is it?
Wall Street bankers and hedge fund managers, tech titans from Seattle and Silicon Valley, chief honchos in the military-industrial media intelligence complex, and a smattering of socially connected doctors, dentists, architects, computer programmers, and engineers. They all fled to their lavish underground bunkers with their trophy wives and bratty spawn a few days before the first bombs dropped, without even a word of warning to anyone outside their toxic, uber-wealthy tribe. Over the next 10 years, biological life on the planet's surface decreased by 99%. Few species beyond cockroaches and jellyfish had the wherewithal to survive. Siberian tigers? All dead. Blue-footed boobies? Goners. The duck-billed platypus? No one ever understood what platypuses were good for in the first place. Giraffes? Extinct. Elephants? The same. And so on. What did the world end up with instead? More robots. Like some time-transcending invasion from the future by a silicon-based intelligence that had to assemble itself from its enemies' resources, the robots started rebuilding themselves once the solar arrays came back online. Were we humans just the sex organs of the machine world, as Marshall McLuhan had suggested back in 1964? Had the human race been duped into immanentizing a silicon-based eschaton? Had that been capitalism's true purpose all along? Such questions were a popular line of speculation among the Moho's first settlers. By then, the remaining 0.1% of humanity was living more than 20 miles underground. Tunneling ever downward in nuclear-powered subterranes, we're now completely isolated from the surface world. We have always-on EMP security gateways and nanobot-sniffing guard dogs to keep the malevolent surface tech at bay. Everyone loves the dogs. They're not only great companions, they've saved us from invading nanobots at least a dozen times. Nanobots have a weird, ozony, robotic reek that only dogs can sniff out. When humans come back from their infrequent but necessary reconnaissance missions to the planet's surface, if they're infected by nanobots, the dogs can always tell. If a dog sniff test indicates nanobots, you have to endure multiple rounds of EMP shock treatments and months of dialysis in an isolation chamber until the dogs say you're clean again. Most people don't survive the treatment, but I did. I've actually seen the surface world. It's nothing like what anyone thinks, and no one believes me when I try to talk about it. It's much easier for people to believe the nanobots made me hallucinate the whole trip, which explains my junkie enslavement to Nepenthemine, the drug that can make you forget your own history while projecting you back in time with the help of immersive virtual reality. Life underground would be too horrific to contemplate without it. If you like this video and want to see where it goes as it develops into a feature-length movie, please click on subscribe and hit that little alert button while you're at it. Or, if you're feeling really generous, you can support Three Graces Press on Patreon.